Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Bias on the bench. Florida's broken sentencing system designed for fairness, it fails to account for prejudice. By Josh Salmon, Emily L. Ekas and Elizabeth Johnson. Herald Tribune. Justice has never been blind when it comes to race in Florida. Blacks were first at the mercy of slave masters. Then came Jim Crow segregation and the Ku Klux Klan. Now, prejudice wears a black robe. Half a century after the civil rights movement, trial judges throughout Florida sentence blacks to harsher punishment than whites, a Herald Tribune investigation found. They offer blacks fewer chances to avoid jail or scrub away felonies. They give blacks more time behind bars, sometimes double the sentences of whites accused of the same crimes under identical circumstances. Florida lawmakers have struggled for 30 years to create a more equitable system. Points are now used to calculate sentences based on the severity of the crime, the defendant's prior record and a host of other factors. The idea is to punish criminals in Pensacola the same as those in Key West, no matter their race, gender, or wealth. But the point system has not stopped discrimination. In Manatee County, judges sentence whites convicted of felony drug possession to an average of 5 months behind bars. They give blacks with identical charges and records more than a year. Judges in the Florida Panhandle County of Okaloosa sentence whites to nearly 5 months for battery. They lock up blacks for almost a year. Along the state's northeast shore, judges in Flagler County put blacks convicted of armed robbery away for nearly triple the time. It's unconscionable, said Wingo Newton Sr., a former St. Petersburg City Commissioner and Democrat, who was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 2016. That's like running a red light in a white car and your ticket is $100 and running a red light in a black car and your ticket is $300. The Herald Tribune spent a year reviewing tens of millions of records in 2 state databases, one compiled by the state's court clerks that tracks criminal cases through every stage of the justice system, and the other by the Florida Department of Corrections that notes points scored by felons at sentencing. Reporters examined more than 85,000 criminal appeals, read through boxes of court documents and crossed the state to interview more than 100 legal experts, advocates, and criminal defendants. The newspaper also built a first-of-its-kind database of Florida's criminal judges to compare sentencing patterns based on everything from a judge's age and previous work experience to race and political affiliation. Among the findings: Florida's sentencing system is broken. When defendants score the same points in the formula used to set criminal punishments indicating they should receive equal sentences, blacks spend far longer behind bars. There is no consistency between judges in Tallahassee and those in Sarasota. The war on drugs exacerbates racial disparities. Police target poor black neighborhoods, funneling more minorities into the system. Once in court, judges are tougher on black drug offenders every step of the way. Nearly half the counties in Florida sentence blacks convicted of felony drug possession to more than double the time of whites, even when their backgrounds are the same. Florida state courts lack diversity, and it matters when it comes to sentencing. Blacks make up 16% of Florida's population and 1/3 of the state's prison inmates. But fewer than 7% of sitting judges are black and less than half of them preside over serious felonies. White judges in Florida sentence black defendants to 20% more time on average for third-degree felonies. Blacks who wear the robe give more balanced punishments. There's little oversight of judges in Florida. The courts keep a wealth of data on criminal defendants. So does the prison system. But no one uses the data to review racial disparities in sentencing. Judges themselves don't know their own tendencies. Without checks to ensure equality, bias reigns. Bias on the bench continued on page 4. Alan Peters robbed a corner store. So did Jaquavius Sturgis. Both were the same age. Both had juvenile records. Both scored the same points at sentencing. Matching scores should mean matching punishment. That's not what happened. The difference? The color of their skin. Alan Peters. An analysis of 2 state databases shows Judge Robert Foster sentences black defendants convicted of felony drug possession more harshly than white defendants convicted of the same crime. Jaquavius Sturgis. Lee Hayworth, a retired senior judge in Sarasota and former chief of the 12th Circuit, said that in most cases, judges are signing off on sentences that the prosecutor and defendant agreed to. Bias on the bench. Judges say they are not racist. But centuries of racial tension in America, a lack of cultural understanding and negative stereotypes cloud their judgment. There's a built-in expectation that you're more likely to be violent if you're African American, and that's ingrained in some of our judges, said Martin McLean, a South Florida defense lawyer who handles death penalty cases across the state. In some counties, you can just feel the racism. Judges contacted by the Herald Tribune denied discriminating against defendants by race. They said they weigh each case on the merits, and punishments perceived as biased can be taken up with the appeals court. Some shifted blame to law enforcement. Others pointed to prosecutors. The public thinks judges get to do whatever they want, and that's just not accurate, said Lee Hayworth, a retired senior judge in Sarasota and former chief of the 12th Circuit. Judges are just blessing what the prosecutor and defendant agreed to. These sentences were handed to the judges on a silver platter. There's only a tiny percentage where I think the judges could be responsible for the disparities with things like age, gender, or race. To be sure, sentences across Florida are negotiated before they reach the judge for final approval. But a Herald Tribune investigation found the system still leaves judges with the discretion to show mercy. They just show it more often to the people who look like them. Across Florida, when a white and black defendant score the same points for the same offense, judges give the black defendant a longer prison stay in 60% of felony cases. For the most serious first-degree crimes, judges sentence blacks to 68% more time than whites with identical points. For burglary, it's 45% more. For battery, it's 30%. You may have had a white child who got a slap on the hand or warning, said Karimuhil Harvey, a retired judge from New Jersey, who lives in Southwest Florida. A black child would go straight to jail. What they call leniency. 17-year-old Alan Christopher Peters entered the criminal justice system as an adult in 2008, when he stuck up a gas station in Lee County. Peters and his co-defendant made off with about $500 and another $140 worth of merchandise, court records show. The Cape Coral man, who carried a gun, was charged with armed robbery with a deadly weapon. The scoresheet calculations determined 4 years was the lowest permissible prison sentence that the court could levy. Ignoring the guidelines, prosecutors and defense counsel agreed to a plea deal that called for no jail time. Judge Joseph A. Simpson, who took over the case from Judge Edward Valtz Jr., concurred. Simpson sentenced the white teenager to probation without any incarceration. Judge Valtz was not so lenient with Jaquavius Sturgis. Just before 9 a.m. on a Monday in 2012, 2 men wearing black hooded sweatshirts and ski masks entered a Lee County convenience store and demanded money. They were armed with guns. They grabbed $300 from the register. They took the store clerk's wallet and jewelry. Prosecutors charged Sturgis with 1 count of armed robbery with a deadly weapon. Judge Valtz gave the black teen 4 years in prison, also agreeing to a plea bargain between prosecutors and defense counsel. Both Peters and Sturgis have 3 confidential crimes on their juvenile records, which were not taken into consideration. Both were convicted of armed robbery in the same county. Both signed plea deals to avoid trial and both were 17 at the time of their offenses. Both scored the same points. Nothing in public documents provides an explanation for why they were treated differently. Peters' file has been destroyed, according to the state attorney's office. My lawyer at the time said this was the best deal I was going to get, Sturgis said. I guess that's what they call leniency. The disparity between the 2 cases is not unusual. Since 2004, Lee County judges sentenced black defendants convicted of robbery to an additional 16 months on average compared with whites who scored the same points. Experts say similar outcomes play out in courtrooms across Florida. I have 2 kids. One is a white kid from the suburbs. The judge sees that the kid kind of looks like his son and talks like his son, and the judge thinks, this kid is a good kid. I'll give him a second chance, said Howard Finkelstein, Broward County's public defender. Second kid is urban, has a bounce in his step, from a poor community. When he speaks, his tone is a little different, and the judge thinks, this kid has a bad attitude. I'm not going to give him a second chance. Sarah Miles, a spokeswoman for the 20th Circuit, which includes Charlotte County, said judges in Lee County strive to avoid any appearance of bias or partiality. I can tell you that our judges sentence defendants according to sentencing guidelines and state statutes, Miles said. They do not take any bias into consideration. In the wilderness for a very long time. Nassau County deputies arrested Timothy Blount for selling 5 grams of cocaine to an undercover informant in 2005. He pleaded guilty and scored 28 points. Judge Robert Foster showed mercy. He sentenced the 21-year-old white man to drug rehab and 3 years of probation. The same judge was harder on Zachary Jameson. Charged in 2009 with selling cocaine in Nassau County, the 22-year-old black man also pleaded guilty, scored 28 points and went before Foster. But probation was not in the cards. Foster sent Jameson to state prison for 13 months. Nassau County has one of Florida's widest racial discrepancies in sentencing when it comes to drug crimes, a Herald Tribune analysis of state sentencing data shows. Judges presiding over courtrooms in the conservative county north of Jacksonville give blacks an additional 332 days in lockup for felony drug charges. That is more than double the time given to whites with identical records. The courthouse in Nassau County is named after Foster, who was appointed to the bench 30 years ago. But members of the black community have been calling on him to step down over what they perceive as a bias against minorities, particularly with drug cases. They started an online petition in 2014 that drew more than 630 signatures. When you have misconduct and you know it, where do you go, said Bernard Thompson, a longtime NAACP leader and advocate in Nassau County. We have been in the wilderness for a very long time. Foster locks up whites for an average of 224 days for felony drug possession. He gives blacks charged with the same crime and who scored the same points an average of 562 days, nearly a year longer. Foster adamantly denied discriminating against black defendants. From my viewpoint, 29 years on the bench, I don't care if a defendant is black or white or male or female, Foster said. I am unaware if that enters my mind in any of my decisions. Foster said that every case is different, and even if 2 defendants commit the same crime under similar circumstances, he believes it is unfair to compare the outcome. While not addressing the racial disparity, he said his rulings reflect the desires of his community in Nassau to take a hard line on drugs in all cases. If you have a community that believes selling drugs is wrong, and there should be consequences to it, there will be sentences that comport to that, he said. I am part of the community. I reflect the values of my community.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done...
for life hating so much.
Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before, we're
Sheriff's
just
getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
County. This is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.